We are going to hear tomorrow, apparently, a little bit earlier than expected, the Senate, at least the Republicans there, because this is all a Republican move here to revamp the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, hearing the first of what will be many amendments. We're told up to 100 of them tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. You heard earlier on with South Dakota Senator Rounds this idea that they are open to keeping some of the taxes in Obamacare, including those on the upper income, the 3.8% surtax on investments for those earning over $200,000, couples $250,000, and the 0.9% hike on Medicare-related taxes for that same august group, two of whom are here today to express their wild-eyed support. Market watcher Scott Martin, former Goldman Sachs senior partner, best-selling author Peter Kiernan. Peter, what do you think of where the health care thing is going and the fact that they're trying to get this done, hook or crook?
Look, they're trying very hard. 42 votes is what I think we can give them generously, but there is a lot of wood to chop. I'm not sure some of the proposed amendments to opioid help, and the Cruz amendment, if you will, for getting all this tax cuts sort of left alone. I'm not sure that's going to make it. I think it's going to be,
Well, you need 50 votes, and the vice president being the tiebreaker. Is it your sense that they're not going to get any near that, even with all these allowances to keep Medicaid alive? And
look, they have $500 billion to play with, right, to sort of negotiate. So I would never rule it out. But 42, and when I listen to what Paul and Murkowski and Collins are saying, these are not people who are ready to bend right over. I think they are saying we want more significant change, just some prettifying amendments.
All right, the $500 billion to which Peter refers to, of course, is the savings that they get, the extra savings the senators argue they're going to get versus the House plan, and now the added savings, the extra roughly $230 billion if you keep those key taxes, that 3.8% of the 0.9%. But it is keeping taxes.
Isn't that amazing, though? I mean, $500 billion to play with, and they're still maybe down, and there still might be doubt. This thing still might just blow away, and that's what's scary to me. If you think about the markets, Neil, and what the markets have looked at, say, going into the August recess potentially, and certainly into the end of the year, and then the midterms, which are now what? A year and change away, and suddenly maybe we don't get the health care plan done, and now we've got tax reform, we've got repatriation, maybe more regulatory reform right behind this. That's scary from the standpoint of where the market is today. But what if you do get it done? And this is a way, I don't like the process. Sometimes seeing how the sausage is made confirms I'd rather not have any more
being
sausage.
A vegetarian, right? But I do wonder what they're left with, because at best it would be just a slightly smaller omnibus government program. But it clears the decks for, presumably, the tax cuts. What do you think?
Listen, I think clearing the air is a great idea, but I really, really believe they should have led with tax cuts.
Too late for that.
And that's too late for that. So what I would say to any Republican is compromise. Get some sort of tax relief. If you don't go for broad-gauge tax reform, get something.
So what about this swap? And when I heard Mark Meadows, the guy who runs the House Freedom Caucus, yesterday talking about, well, I can accept this. He's Mr. Anti-Tax, but if it's a means to an end and getting tax cuts or tax reform, I'll do it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more joy that I'm feeling around the tax reform effort than I am on the health care. And what I would say is, by the way, on one hand, on health care, you seem to be taking something away from somebody, and on the tax, you're giving something to them. And if you focus on, don't be so heroic. You don't have to be Homer. Just get some good, solid tax benefits passed along to the middle class. People will remember that come the midterms.
But you're not talking Homer the Simpsons. You're talking
Homer Simpson.
Yes.
Ohio, which is where
there's an odyssey. There's an odyssey.
Is the tax break, though, really, as far as the Democrats concerned, giving something to somebody? I mean, I've heard so much rhetoric from their side about, well, this is going to cost us so much debt in the future that we can't do it. And that's what worries me, is we thought that health care was maybe going to be the easy thing. At least Donald Trump did. At least on the campaign trail. That was day one. He was going to do that, right? Repeal and replace. Here we are in July, and it's not happening, it looks like. Is the tax reform bill, is it that simple? I mean, does it go over that easy, Peter, with respect to saying, hey, Congress is going to come together on this thing because this is the layup?
Do you think that any of the stuff that's developing right now on Capitol Hill, and we're watching a little bit, this is Chris Wray, the FBI picked up Donald Trump, and already Dianne Feinstein has indicated, she's a pretty liberal Democrat, that she would support him. She would vote for him. But having said that, all the other theater around this, and whether there's more collusion or whether there's a constitutional crisis, you've heard it all, that gets in the way of all of this.
I don't think so. I don't think the stock market is very effective at managing a son who makes a bad judgment in the early part of a campaign. I don't think they have a way to put a multiple on that.
When does the stock market start fearing this? When it develops? And with Watergate originally, we didn't appreciate the magnitude to come. I'm not comparing people go, oh, he's bad, you know what, when I did. But do you think that could be an issue, and what would do it?
Well, I think this kind of procession of falling feet, that every time another shoe drops, I think we really create a problem of credibility. And I think the market...
That the administration has credibility.
Yes, and I'm afraid that is the one thing that could be a lingering shadow. But there are 4 or 5 things that are driving the markets. Earnings, the tech growth, the growth in Europe, and yes, an accommodative Fed or something.
But isn't all that factored into a generous market already?
I think it is, but you said something great right there, Peter. Accommodative Fed.
Yeah.
Donald Trump has an ally that he assails practically every chance he gets. Janet Yellen. Easy loose money, Janet Yellen.
Did what she say today, which is probably more influential for the markets today, the one hearing that is getting more market buzz, that I'm essentially done hiking rates?
I couldn't believe it. And the balance sheet unwinding is going to take forever. I mean, you saw in the last commentary from the Fed, the minutes, some of them are talking about not unwinding the balance sheet. Yeah. The trillions of dollars.
We're talking about the $4.5 trillion.
Yeah, just a couple $1 trillion.
You have a different spin.
Yeah, I wouldn't believe it. Frankly, what she said, and I've been reading Fed speak since 1975. That's the first time I had to kind of interpret this. She said it's premature. But she didn't say we aren't going to do it. And she also said, well, we're not going to be as...
burst our bubble, buddy.
Well, I hate to do it.
It's okay.
I think this is temporary relief. I think this is an analgesic that'll get us over a few days. But for the Fed to be center stage right now makes no sense. They are the real prop for a lot of asset values today, and they're going to have to do something with that $4 trillion balance sheet. They have to.
They're still going to do it. They just do it slowly, right?
Very slowly. And I'll tell you, I mean, what if data changes? I mean, look at interest rates today.
I know.
Down. Markets rallying 100 points in the Dow. Interest rates are falling.
If you're right, you say this is short-lived. This is.
I do, and I think one of the things about inflation is you have to know where to look. I don't think the jobs report does a good job of reflecting true inflation. And there are people who look at things like withholding taxes, which are going up meaningfully, would say, oh, there may be some wage inflation baked in there. Go to any city in the country, and what you're seeing is cranes everywhere, growth everywhere. I don't believe the 2%. I think it's actually greater than that. I think the inflation that's really baked into our economy is going to take a little while longer to evidence itself, and then you're going to see the Fed start doing the hawkish stuff.
Well, on that, you know,
even if they get hawkish, let me make you feel a little better. Even if they get hawkish, that probably means rates are only going to 3 or 4%.
Yeah,
nowhere.
That's pretty low.
We shall see.